Hey everyone, welcome to day 19 of my trip to Rann and Rajasthan. My third day in Jaipur began with some bird watching with Mr. Arun, my guide, a wildlife expert. Early morning, we set out in Arun's bike to visit the Amer Fort. On the way, his expert eye spotted a few rare species of birds which he was excited to introduce me to. He taught me how to spot some species of parakeets and other birds commonly found in our subcontinent. The Amer Fort is situated on top of a hill, on the way to which there are a few viewpoints from where you can see the Mavota Lake and the entire city of Jaipur. The three main forts of Jaipur, namely the Amer, Nahagarh and Jaigarh Fort, are all situated on a hilltop overlooking the entire Jaipur city. This location gave the king's army a strategic advantage in safeguarding the entire Jaipur city. The view of these three forts aligned on top of the hill one after the other is simply amazing. Tourists sometimes take elephant rides through the main road that leads to Amer Fort. Mr. Arun took me through another way to get to the fort. The windy roads that took us to the fort were lined with smaller other structures from the time of the fort. We parked the bike and Arun led me to the courtyard of the fort through one of its gates. The Amer Fort was built by King Man Singh in the early 1600s and later expanded by the King Jai Singh. The fort has 6 sections having its own gates and courtyards. This is the main courtyard. The armies used to hold their victory parades in this courtyard, and now this courtyard is paraded by elephants which carry tourists. Even though the sight of parading elephants looks beautiful, these elephants are often tortured into doing this. This is the Singh Pole Gate or the Lion Gate, through which these elephants bring in tourists into the courtyard. The pathway to the gate is constructed in a zigzag manner to slow down the intruders. The walls of the path are lined with small holes through which the army used to shoot arrows at its intruders. I purchased the ticket to the fort and entered another courtyard. This courtyard is situated at a higher level than the first one. This courtyard houses the Diwani arm or the hall of public audience. As the name suggests, this is where the king used to hold public meetings. One negative thing I notice about this fort is that a lot of wedding shoots are going on in and around the fort. The whole crew of wedding photographers and videographers often block the view of the monuments. I wish government regulated this, but then again, weddings are a multi-million business. I followed the crowd to the hammam or the Turkish bath. This is a toilet complex built for the royal family. The corners of the floor had small water channels leading up to huge bathtubs. I walked up to the next courtyard, which houses the Diwani Khas or the hall of the private audience. This is where the king used to hold meetings with other rulers. This is also called the Sheesh Mahal or the Mirror Palace, as the entire interior is lined with mirrors. The intricate artwork and the mirror work inside the hall is simply beautiful. I spent some time in Sheesh Mahal just staring at the ceiling and the walls. They say that the entire structure used to light up and glitter with the rays of a single candlelight. The Sheesh Mahal had another bathroom complex attached to it. From one courtyard to the other, the palace is filled with narrow hallways. It's very easy to get lost in this maze if it weren't for the signboards. These hallways have different rooms for different purposes with a different design for each of them. These rooms were used by the queen and the women folk of the palace. All these rooms open to the next courtyard, the Zenana. This courtyard used to hold meetings held by the queens or the Maharanis of the palace. I followed the signboards and the stairs to another section of the fort, which used to be the water storage area of the palace. I got down to the court from where you can see the Zenani, the ladies' apartment of the fort. All sides of the courtyard has small private rooms with open balconies that face the courtyard. I walked into these apartments to have a closer look at the rooms. I wish it was maintained a little bit better. Some of the rooms look plain while others look fancy. I'm guessing the fancy rooms would have been for the higher members of the royal family. I followed different stairways and corridors and got to the exit of the fort. While exiting, I saw a small gate and a signboard with no tourists around. I decided to have a closer look. This is an underground tunnel that connects the Amer fort to the Jaigarh Fort. It was used by the royal family to escape during an invasion. Although much of the tunnel is closed and buried underground, a small part of it is still accessible, so I decided to have a closer look. The tunnel has few points that allows air entry from the surface. I walked a little further to check out the tunnel, but since there was no one around and it was a bit spooky, I decided to head back. While I was waiting for Mr. Arun to pick me up, I made a quick look around to the other forts on the hilltops before we headed to the next destination. Since it was closer to noon, I was a bit hungry and decided to have a quick bite before reaching Jaigarh Fort. Arun took me to a local kachori shop, and man, that was the best kachori I've ever had in my life. Rajasthani kachoris were on another level. After a belly full of snack, we headed to the next hilltop to get to Jaigarh Fort. The Jaigarh Fort is situated on the hilltop called Chil Katila, or the Hill of Eagles. It was built by the King Jai Singh in 1726 to protect the Amer fort. The fort is over 3 kilometers in length and 1 kilometer wide. That's a lot of distance to cover by foot, and I think that's why vehicles were allowed inside the fort. These flags represent the princely houses that still exist today and own a part of the fort. The entire fort wall is filled with such holes that used to fit cannons to shoot down the intruders. From here you can see a few hills of the Aravalli range, the Mawata lake and the Jal Mahal. Jaigarh Fort houses the Jaivan cannon, which is believed to be the world's largest cannon. During the reign of the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan, Jaigarh Fort became one of the world's most efficient cannon foundries due to the presence of a large number of iron ore mines in the vicinity of the fort. The Javelin cannon, although it was built in the year 1720, it was never used in any battle. It was fired only once with a charge of 100 kg of gunpowder and covered a distance of 35 kilometers. The view of Amer Fort and Nahagarh Fort from the Jaigarh Fort top is simply beautiful. After roaming around the fort for some time, I decided to head back and go to the last destination for today. On the way to Nahagarh Fort, we stopped at a few viewpoints to get a good look of the Mansagar Lake and the Jal Mahal. The Nahagarh Fort is situated closer to the Jaipur city. It was built in the 1700s by the King Jai Singh, the then King of Jaipur. Before entering the fort, Mr. Arun took me through its perimeter to show me the fort wall and the step well. This is one of the many step wells of the fort constructed for the fort's water supply. The fort overlooks the city of Jaipur. We took a walk around the fort wall to have a closer look at the step well. Water to the step well was brought in by such channels connected to the local water sources. These historic utility constructions are still intact and looks amazing. We continue to take a walk around the fort wall to take a good look at Jaipur city below. These fort walls extend to connect the Jaigarh Fort to form one unit. Nahagarh also means abode of tigers. It was built as a place of retreat by the king. After roaming around the fort, I decided to get inside and have a look. Nahagarh Fort was different from the other two forts in a way that there were some hotels and other commercial establishments inside the fort. Nahagarh Fort has many palaces built inside. It has rooms and courts for the queens and for the king also. Nahagarh Fort was often used as a vacation palace or as a hunting residence for the kings. The intricate artwork and designs in these rooms are very beautiful. After roaming around and seeing the insides of the fort, I climbed up the stairs and went to the roof. From the roof of the fort is spectacular. You can see the entire city of Jaipur from the rooftop. After roaming around the roof of the fort for some time, I decided to head downstairs to take a look at few more rooms before I get out of the fort. Once I was done satisfying my fort appetite, I got out of the fort, took a rest for some time before heading to the next spot. Since Nahagarh Fort has a view of the entire Jaipur city, it has a sunset point which I was told by Mr. Arun not to miss by any chance. So as the sun was setting in, I headed to the sunset point. As the sun was setting over the beautiful city of Jaipur, I was reflecting on my entire trip to Rann and Rajasthan. I was filled with gratitude on what this trip turned out to be. More than the sights, the people I met and the experience I had was simply amazing. have asked for a better ending to this entire trip than by watching this beautiful sunset over the Pink City. My 3 days in Jaipur was made amazing by Arun, my local guide, and the wonderful folks at Bluebirds Hostel. As the sun went down, I made myself a promise to come back here someday and experience Rajasthan all over again. Once the sun set, I joined the crowd and headed to the exit to join Mr. Arun. Before heading back to the parking lot, I couldn't help but stop and take one last good look at the beautiful city of Jaipur and its iconic monuments glittering in the night. Mr. Arun took me through an alternate route from Nahagarh Fort to Jaipur city. Although the route was steep and a little bit dangerous, it offered great night view of the city. Once we descended down the hill, we roamed around Jaipur city for a while, listening to Arun's stories before we headed back to hostel. Jaipur city in the night looks absolutely stunning with its wonderful LED light work. My trip to Rajasthan was wonderful beyond what I had expected it to be. The food, the people, the places, and the experiences I had all have made a significant impression on my memory. I'm sure I'll come back to this place one day. That's it for today's video. I hope you guys liked it. See you in the next one where I start my long journey back home.